Hello and welcome to the Quick Look video series. I'm Heather Craig, your host, and if any of you are still sticking around for a long time ago, it's great to be back. Hi! Okay, so here's what happened and why this series is now being made. Basically, it's no secret. I've been away trying to do web design for a while. I've not really been touching 3D art so very much since I left college, and I'm just getting back into that now. So I came back in, I loaded up my 3D software, and I got immediately lost. You can see up here we're using Max 2012. I think the last time I used 3D software regularly it was 2010, and the first thing I noticed when I opened up this material editor was that it looked scary and confusing. Now, instead of running away and not making you tutorials, I thought, hey, wait a minute. If I'm having trouble with this, chances are someone else is having trouble with this. So I'm going to make a series for you guys and partly for me to refamiliarize us with the tools and tricks in the material editor. I may expand this to include other parts of Max as well, and way down the line I may even start doing it with other types of tutorials. But for now we're going to get things started with a look at the standard material. So before I do that, I'm just going to double check I've got my nice teapot here selected. Yes, it's very original, I know, but bear with me through this. And we'll open up our material editor and let's just take a quick look at what's actually here. Now, like normal, we've got all of our standard operations at the top. That's not changed too much. We can still show background in previews, show shaded material in viewport, assign to object, put material to scene, etc. That's pretty cool. But instead of having our grid of the spheres that we used to make materials with, we can now drag and drop them into this view here. So what we're going to do, since we're starting with the standard material, is just click and drag that over. I'm fairly sure, yep, we can double click it and add a new one too, but click and drag probably simplest at the moment. Now what it's done is it's put up the name, the type, and the various maps we can add on here, which is fantastic. We're not interested in that right now though. We're just going to double click and bring up the material properties over here. This fortunately looks pretty much the same as I remember, so we won't do too much stumbling through it today. But before we get any further, I'm going to assign it to our teapot so that any changes we make we can quickly look there. Now, basically, the standard material is your go-to material. It's your default. This is what you would add before you'd add anything else, maybe even before you consider adding anything else. So it's an important one to understand, and the main properties are here. It uses Blinn as its shader by default. At some point we will go into shaders properly and delve in. We are ignoring that for now. So as far as we're concerned right now, this is our standard setup. Okay? We're also not making it a wireframe, though that is ridiculously cool. And, you know, we're not face mapped, we're not making material two-sided or faceted or any of that right now, but we can do all these things. So we're just going to close down the shader basic parameters and get started. Now, these standard materials are made up of three main colors, if you like. I'm not sure colors is the right word, but we're going to go with that. The ambient, diffuse, and specular. And we can select any of these here. We can also add maps to either diffuse or specular, and if we really truly want, we can unlock the map for ambient as well. Good stuff. Now, what these are, actually, because I went ahead and did a little bit of research on Max's help folder, the ambient color is meant to be how the material would appear in less than ideal lighting. So that's kind of your shaded texture, the way it looks when it's not in ideal light, all that stuff. The diffuse is how it looks and behaves when it is lit perfectly. That's like the ideal representation of it. And the specular is basically the highlights, and the highlight color, how that behaves. Oh great. Now, what happens is the way these all blend together is based on two different things. The ambient and diffuse blend together based on your shader, which again we're not talking about today, so we'll move quickly past that. And the diffuse and specular blend based on the specular highlights here. So the way it generally works, and a good rule of thumb, is if you want an object to look shiny, you want to have a high specular level and a high glossiness. And it will give you an appearance kind of like that. You can see here, actually, you know what, we're going to make it a different color so it's easier to see. We'll make that purple. Now you can see just the small highlights here and there. That is a basic shiny texture. Right? Now if we wanted to make a more matte color, we would lessen the glossiness and probably drop the specular. So at the moment it's still quite shiny, but you can see that it's a lot softer and it looks more dulled than the last one. That's basically how this section works. And you can add softness, remove softness, and play with it. We won't really be able to see that much on this texture, but it is an option there. Added to that, you've got self-illumination, which I love. If you take it, you can change the color as well, which is always a lot of fun. Look at that. Or you can add a map in here, or you can boost it up and down, and it will just use the diffuse color when you do that. Oh. Apparently it full screens as well if you're not careful. So, you know, we've got that part of it as well, which is fantastic. Now we'll just take a quick look at the extended parameters. I'm not massively familiar with these, so bear with me. Yeah, right. Extended parameters, you've got your advanced transparency, which hand on heart I have never used. We'll get to that at some point. Your wire parameters, which basically define how thick the wires are if you're using a wire texture like up here. And this part, reflection dimming, I'm assuming that's to do with dampening. Again, not really used it awfully much. The part I have used a lot though is this maps section here. Now, I love this section. It's where I do most of my work because in any of these variables here we can add a map and it'll behave differently. One of the nice things that Max has now done is we've also linked it out here. So you can add it the traditional way by clicking and then selecting, which is cool. Or you can add it by coming over to the side here and grabbing a map, then linking it up to any of these nodes here. Very useful, I think you'll agree. But you know, other than that, not much has very changed an awful lot, thankfully. And this is pretty much it for a quick look at the standard texture. You know, we'll be doing a lot of these, probably at a rate of about once a month, and we'll go through each of the different materials and maps for that. So that will be pretty useful. And yeah, stay tuned. If you want to be notified when more of these come out, go on over to Tumblr at heathercraig.tumblr.com. I'll link in the description of the video if you're not there already. And you can select to be notified this every time we've got a new tutorial out. Once again, this has been Heather. It's great catching up with you guys, and I'll see you when I do. Yo, I'm done.
You're not doing a video?
No. No, I already stopped recording. I just need to finish up and save it.